when you're considering becoming a living donor, I think it's helpful to kind of think about some considerations that might happen through the course of surgery, and to make sure that you feel comfortable with all the possible outcomes. And if engaging in the surgery, still has that, if you're comfortable with that level of risk that is involved in being a donor. So there's a health consideration for yourself that you need to make. Just engaging in surgery itself poses just a natural baseline of risk that you can't predict and you can't prevent. There's a small but possible chance that you wouldn't make it through surgery just because you have a negative reaction to the anesthesia. Or perhaps you could have a complication after surgery. You could develop an infection, or something even a little bit more minor. You could just by virtue of losing your gallbladder, maybe you can't eat like certain fried foods because it gives you too much heartburn, something like that. Is that an acceptable level of risk for you? Or maybe you have like an allergic reaction to medication. If that happens to you, would you still have felt comfortable going through that process? And then the other consideration is, what if something happens to your recipient? So maybe your recipient doesn't make it, or your recipient has a complication. How are you going to feel? Because I think, for me personally, I felt very responsible for what happened to my recipient. Like, I wondered, if somebody else was the donor, would it have gone better? If it had been, a different set of circumstances, would that have happened to my recipient? And, when my recipient had an infection post-surgery, it's scary, and you're just trying to figure out what's happening, and if they're going to be okay, and you're worried. And I thought to myself, well, if both of us had known in advance that this thing was going to happen, would we have still gone through the surgery? And the answer is yes, because having the surgery is way more important than dealing with the complication after. At least he had a new liver at that point. If my recipient didn't make it, would I still have felt comfortable being the donor? And my only conclusion is, all I can do is everything that I can possibly do to have a positive outcome. I'm going to engage in this process, doing the best that I can, hoping for the best outcome. And I can't control the outcome, but at least I can give the best shot of having something positive happen at the end. So I would still do everything that I did, regardless of if something negative happened at the end. But I think it's helpful to think about that in advance and make sure you are feeling comfortable with all the outcomes and your choices leading up to them, and if you would still want to engage in the process even if something were to happen.